Good morning. So, today I want to talk about dating. Yay! We know how much we all love that. So, a friend of mine who watches asked me to talk a little bit about dating, mostly because it sucks. Yeah. And the reason for this isn't because, you just haven't found the right person yet, or it's because of all of these other factors, whatever. People always have these weird excuses for why people think that dating is terrible. And here's the thing, though. It's not usually about the person. It's about trying to find a person to date. It's not fun. Now, when me and my husband originally started dating, yes, it was fun to date him. We had fun, we went out, we had a good time. Finding him throughout the dating process, because when you decide to start dating, you just don't immediately get handed the first card and say, here, do you like this one? You want to go without this one? And people aren't like giving you information and profiles unless you're on a dating app. And even then, it's like, this one kind of looks good. And you meet it and you're like, ooh, that's not the same thing. So I'm not saying that dating a person isn't great or fun, or that it shouldn't be, or that it will never be. It's finding a person is the hard part of dating. So, something that not a lot of people know, mostly because my husband, every time we get asked, how did you meet? He says coffee. That's half the story. So, when I moved to San Antonio, I was very lonely. I wanted friends. I wanted people to talk to. If you can't tell, I'm an extrovert and I like people. Not all people, just like the general idea that somebody else who listens to me rant. So I got on a couple different dating apps, not all at the same time. I'm not crazy. Just like one at a time, and slowly, I would give one or two guys that I was talking to a chance to talk to them, and then maybe we'd go out, most likely not, and I'd be like, this one doesn't have a good selection, delete it and start another one. This went on for a while to the point that Facebook was like, hey, have you tried this one? Have you tried this one? Have you tried this one? And I'm like, no, I haven't, but it's on my list now. So finally we settled on one, and it's called Coffee Meets Bagel, and I really hate it just because it's such a cheesy name, and I remember the process very vaguely in the back of my head of how it worked, and it was weird. But either way, I was like, what have I got to lose? It helps me pass time to swipe through, and at least for a day I get to talk to one person on the phone, texting them, and then they stop, because that's what happens when you're dating if you don't know. And, going through all of it, met him. It was very weird, I remember, because we didn't really get to talk too much on the messenger, and he just was like, hey, let's have coffee. And I'm like, I guess. He suggested the middle of the day, so I'm assuming everything's okay. And it just turned out that we were on different schedules. He was on a second shift, so he would go into work when I was having lunch, and then I'd get off work and he'd be in the middle of his work, and then we were just shifted schedules, so we were never really free at the same time. When he got off, I was asleep. When I got up, he was asleep. When I got off work, he was at work, and cycling on until Saturday, middle of my day, he got up and we could talk. So different things like that. But we met, it was great. We ended up hitting it off. If you've heard the story, our first date was several hours long, and not like a couple. I'm talking easily 12 hours. I think last time we counted it might have been 15 hours, because we went to coffee, talked too long, I got hungry, he took me to dinner, we talked too long, the restaurant was closing, we went to see a movie together, and then I had to go home because it was Sunday night, and now it was Monday morning and I had work. So that happened. We got along really well. We obviously continue to get along really well. We got married. But that doesn't change that I still think the dating process is hard and rough for everyone, especially in today's climate of, all of the women's rights and what's okay and sexual harassment and all of that stuff, and everybody's just like, eh. And also, all of the Nazis are back, apparently, and so we get to find this out. And so there's just so much going on right now that it's a little hard to date, but I feel like it's always been really hard to date. And in my opinion, part of it is how we've been disillusioned to when you know, and everybody hears our dating story like, oh, well, you guys had a long first date, you must have known you were meant for each other. I tried to break up with him at some point, and it's like the running joke by this point that he's so stubborn he didn't let me. And it wasn't that he was bad or that I didn't like him, it was just that I was really nervous and scared because my last relationship I thought was going, well, it needed work, but I thought it was going good. And he said, no, it's not, see you later. I would have broken up with you earlier, but you were busy doing other stuff, so I didn't. And I was like, great, that's what everyone wants to hear. So, seeing this other guy that I really liked, I was like, I just really want to fall in love with this one, because if it doesn't work, I don't want to do that again. So, I was going to run, he didn't let me. Good for both of us, because evidently it really did work. But there was just so much stuff, and then on top of that, I was living 3.5 hours from home, and there was nobody in my family that lives here, except for my aunt who was across town. And so my mom, when she called and found out I was dating a guy, which happened on our first date because she called me because I was out late and was like, why aren't you home? And I was like, well, I'm kind of on a date. And so since that day, she was like, I need pictures of this boy. I need to know what he looks like. I need to know where he lives. I need to know his parents' information. I got to know if this guy's, if you disappear, I need to know who to blame, pretty much. To me, it gets funny because I didn't believe her, and I believe her more now as we've gotten to know each other better because he's crazy. But I am too, so fair. And just like all of this stuff that she was asking me, like, we had some family friends who lived here, and she was like, go introduce him to them so that way they know what he looks like, and I need somebody to like talk to the sketch artist what this guy looks like. And so that was in my head. At the same time, an article came out that some poor woman went on a date with a guy through an app and then wasn't feeling well, went home, let him in for a little bit because she started feeling better, and then started feeling bad again, and so let him out, locked the door, went to bed. Evidently he broke in, he was a serial killer or something like that. But she didn't die, fortunately, somehow, and found out she was being drilled. It's a whole thing. And so that's in my head now, on top of my mom being like, is he crazy? And then I'm nervous because my last relationship didn't go well, and so I'm like hyperventilating every time we hang out. It got to the point where I was like, can I only see you when we eat? Because that is going to be easier for me. It's a weird request, but for that whole first month, we really only saw each other when we went out to eat. Either he had a day off and we went to dinner when I got off work, or it was the weekend and he wanted to take me to like the botanical gardens and there was food involved, and it was to me it's still really funny, but that was kind of where I was trying to put up my boundaries and freaking out because I'd had bad dating experiences. And it's something that not a lot of people talk about. Like, once you get to like my point where you're married, it's like, oh, you know, dating, it was easy, it just took me time to find my husband, it was great. I'm still gonna tell you, it was not great. It was awkward and weird, and it was still like getting used to talking to this other person, and it's not like we really knew each other from like school or college or anything. So it wasn't like we had all of these things to like, hey, remember in school when these weird people or like this other stuff that you might have in common for having similarities that you cross. It's one of the things with dating apps is that you don't always have a lot in common right at the get-go. You kind of have to get to know each other, and then you can be like, hey, your favorite color's blue, my name means blue, we've got something in common, kinda. And you just kind of work on it from there. But dating is really hard on top of everything else of trying to figure out if you like this person, trying to develop some sort of relationship, how you get along, and all of that stuff. More than that is, there's all of these misconceptions on what a healthy relationship looks like and how it's supposed to work. Nothing is supposed to anything except some of the basic decencies of human being. They shouldn't mistreat you, they shouldn't talk down to you, they shouldn't do anything that is bad. This is not to say they shouldn't tease with you or have fun with you. Like, I call my husband a coffee addict, which is probably true, but it's mostly in good fun and teasing. I, find little nicknames for him, or I'm just like, sometimes I'm sitting there and going, yeah, no, I love this fact, but I liked it the first time I heard it, and this is like the 10th time I've heard it. And so we tease each other and we have fun, but we understand that if it's an insecurity or we went a little too far, we apologize, and we try to be kind to each other and build each other up. We're not here to tear each other down. And sometimes people don't always see the extent of it. They'll see us in public, and by this point we've kind of got a routine. We know what our boundaries are. We kind of know each other a lot better. And so whenever jokes come up, or we're teasing, or we're talking stories, or we're doing things, we know where the lines are. So it just looks like, oh, I'm just making fun of him. And we're okay with that, because that's okay. It's only okay because we've already talked about it, and we've already discussed it, and we've already gone through the awkward. Was that too far? I apologize. I'm going to take a step back and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I didn't mean to be an insult. We don't know each other that well yet, and I took it too far, and I apologize, and vice versa. And it's things that you learn as a relationship. Sometimes when you're looking at other people in relationships, you don't always see how they got there, or you don't always get to see the struggles and the process that they went through. So most of my friends back home didn't get to see us dating because they were 3.5 hours away. We went to visit when we had been dating for 2 months, and then I don't remember the next time we visited. Maybe in May, because I bought my dress in May. Yeah, we hadn't been dating long when we got engaged. But we didn't get to visit very often, so they only got to see us kind of like going to visit every now and then. And so all of the building our relationship happened more in private, which in my opinion is the way it should be. But we also need to learn to share a little bit, because sometimes our struggles is where people learn. When you find out, hey, quicksand, don't get in that. And if you do, don't do X, Y, and Z, because I learned. And you might not want to talk about it while you're going through it, but maybe once you've gotten through it and you're done and it's in your past, you can talk more about it, because then we can learn from each other and we can figure out what are warning signs. What does this look like? What does that look like? And a lot of that is how we figure out how to date more healthily. And things that I learned while I was dating was, if we're going out to eat and you've picked me up and the whole drive over there you're talking about some girl that you slept with, who wasn't even like a date, like it was their tip for delivering pizza, I don't want to know, and that should have been my warning sign immediately. For me, however, there was a second date, and then I was like, you know what, maybe I was right the first time. We all live and learn. Other ones that was very conceited, and it was always about him and how great he was and how like I needed to work on stuff. And there was another fitness junkie who is like, I've got nothing against fitness, but I live my life the way I want. I think I look great. I don't really feel the need to work out the way you do. And then there was like well, you don't look too good. And I should have walked away from that real quick. However, I didn't. I went through it and then finally was like, you know what? I don't think this is really healthy. It's become the running joke that I dated a lot of terrible guys, because when my husband and I talk about it, he's like, gosh, I'm really sorry you went through that, but damn, the bar was so low for me. Like, I was walking on water our whole relationship. And it's really funny because he kind of was, to the point that I was like, on our first date when we went to dinner, I was like counting my pennies because I just moved here and I was still struggling to like get finances together. And so I was like counting my pennies like, okay, I knew I could afford a Starbucks coffee, but if I get a water and I don't order dessert, we'll see what's on sale. We'll go with that. He paid for dinner because he's an amazing gentleman, and it wasn't assumed. It's something he wanted to do. But the whole time I'm sitting there going, what is this? Mostly because my last relationship, I paid for everything. Not terrible, but at the same time, there was just a lot of things that I allowed myself to put up with because I thought that's what you do. And here are the biggest things that I learned. It is okay to give, but you also need to take. In a relationship, there needs to be that balance. You cannot be the driving force of everything. That was what I learned in my last relationship. I was giving as much as I could. I was trying to be like the perfect girlfriend. I was trying to solve all the problems, and I was getting tired. I was getting drained. I didn't feel great. I didn't really feel like I was his girlfriend sometimes. I felt like I was his mother sometimes. And it was really frustrating for me. And I then second thing, I did not hold him to a high enough standard. Now, there is a difference between, well, I want him to be everything, and I just want him to be a good boyfriend. There are different lines. You have to hold the person that you're dating to a higher standard. You can't just say, he's breathing and he's nice. He said I was pretty. That's not enough. You have to hold them to a standard that you can live with. If you're paying for all the dates, what is he paying for? Is it because he's saving? Is it because you're living together and he's paying rent? Or where is his give in that? And there's all of these things. He didn't really hold a job for very long, and that was really frustrating for me because I, ever since I'd gotten in college, was trying to always have a job. I was a waitress for so long, and you've heard my stories, and I was working at Stripes at some point, I was working at Disney at some point. I was trying to always have a job. Now, there were times in between that I was struggling and I was trying to find a job, but I tried to always have a job, and he didn't. Now, I can understand that I didn't have to, but it was still really frustrating for me. And it was difficult because, in my mind, the way relationships work is they end in two ways. You either break up or you get married. And for me, married is like the end all. There is no exit plan. And I treat it that way because I don't want there to be. I want there to be the mentality that we're going to work through our problems. And he agrees with me, which is why we're married. But to me, that's it. That's you'll stay together forever or you break up. And so these things that came up that I wasn't holding him to higher standards started to bother me because in my mind, okay, if it doesn't end, then I'm going to marry this guy, I'm going to have kids with this guy, raise a family with this guy. I don't feel comfortable doing that knowing that he's not working and he doesn't seem motivated to work. And that was frustrating for me. But I let it go because I was like, no, well, maybe I'm just being harsh and I'm not his mother and I shouldn't be doing this. Blah, why am I expecting things of him? And that's another thing. Yes, you're not supposed to be changing your partner. You're not supposed to try to make them a different person. But you can try to work with them to make a better future for both of you if that's what you want to do. So, little things, like my husband likes to undress by the bed and then get into bed. So he always has a pile of clothes by the bed and sometimes will remember to put them in the hamper. That's frustrating for me. Instead of just getting on his case about always taking the clothes to the bathroom to put them in the laundry basket, I just put a laundry basket by his bed, so just put it in there. That worked. If he decides he doesn't want to do that or he sees this video and he's like, okay, I'm just going to start putting it in. It doesn't bother me. You have to learn that you can try to work with them to find better solutions, but you can't change fundamentally who they are. But that doesn't mean you can't ask things of them. So, if I can't think of any examples right now, and I don't know why, I just can't. So communication is a big thing for me, and I'm a big believer in all of the 5 love languages and all of that, which breaks itself down into categories, but for the most part 5. And one of them is words of affirmation, which is I like to hear reasons why you love me, reasons why you like me, reasons that you chose to fall in love with me. I want to hear what you were thinking when we were dating, and I just want to hear it in words, what you think. Which to me is really funny because I have a really hard time finding the words sometimes to tell somebody else the same thing. And it's not necessarily his. His are more like actions and things that you do and how you take care of each other. So I had to ask him, I was like, hey, do you mind just telling me more? Or if I ask you, don't just say, well, I thought you were cute, and then move on. I want a little bit more than that. And things like that. So we worked on that. And I asked him, and he said yes. And he was okay to work with it. It wasn't a huge change to his character. It was just, can you add this? And we talked about it. And to me, he will still never do it enough because I need to be told that I'm amazing 24/7. Because that's just who I am. But we've figured out our compromise. And so that was number 3. Don't be afraid to ask for things in your relationship because if it's somebody who cares about you, you need to be able to ask them for things, because odds are, if you're invested in this relationship, you are willing to give what you need to make it work. And number 4, just because it didn't work does not mean that you're a failure. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to learn, because when my relationships didn't work, I felt like they were my fault. Like, I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't nice enough, I wasn't accommodating enough, which, listening to myself say some of these things sometimes, I'm just like, that's not a true statement at all. But it didn't reflect on me, it reflected on us. So we didn't work. That doesn't mean that I didn't try enough, or that, it's hard for me to say that he didn't try enough, because I felt like none of them really did, but that's also just my perspective. It's like, maybe they tried in their way, we just weren't compatible, and we moved on. Or maybe different points in our lives. Like, me and my husband have talked about it. It'd have been nice if we'd have met when we were younger, because we'd have been together longer. But at the same time, we really think about it. We're both difficult people now. We were worse when we were teenagers. So if we had met then, we probably would have driven each other crazy, and it would not have worked. Timing is a lot of things. If you really are convinced that somebody's your soulmate and it'll work out, which, despite all the things I've listed about my last boyfriend, I really did believe, if you leave them, you can find your way back. It is a thing. Like, you can take a break from each other to grow as people, and then you can try again later. If you don't want to later, that's okay. If they don't want to later, it hurts, but it's still okay, because there's more opportunities out there. And you have to be okay with you first. Number 5. I think I'm keeping track of the numbers. Be okay with you. Once you stop apologizing for who you are, once you stop holding yourself to impossibly high standards because, well, he said that I needed to be this, or he said that I needed to do this, stop it. You're who you are. I haven't changed who I am. I always thought I was obscenely annoying and nobody else would want to put up with me. Now, my family only put up with me because my parents had me, and so I'm their problem. Once I just let all of that insecurity go and just said, no, they're not putting up with me. They actually love me and like who I am and think that I'm funny sometimes, or that I'm weird most of the time. But they still like who I am. It was a lot easier to accept that my husband felt the same way. He's never called me annoying, and he said things like, I really like who you are, and we work well together. And there are days where it feels so affirmed to me because I'm myself more. I'll make the weird faces at the most inappropriate times, and trust me when I say this, the most inappropriate times. I'll be weird, and I'll try to be funny, and I'll make jokes, and he laughs, and we have a good time. And it works for us. Once you start to accept who you are, it's a lot easier to believe that somebody else will, and to hold them to that standard, not to them be like, I put up with you. No, if they say that, you're most likely, by this point, gonna say, well, if you're gonna put up with me, then I can find somebody else more attractive to put up with me. And you leave, because that's not good enough, and it should never be good enough that someone puts up with you. It should always be that they enjoy being with you. And if you've learned nothing else, dating is a hellish experience for all of us, and you're just gonna figure yourself out. Don't settle for less than everything that you want because you deserve it. Thanks for listening.